I'm glad you guys liked the time I almost got arrested at a Walmart so much. My name is Glen Tickle. Let's address it at the top. That is my name. That is not a joke or a stage name or something that I think looks cute on a poster. Glen Tickle is the name I was given at birth that I have to use in my life when I meet other people. It's been hard. I used to work as a substitute teacher. Yeah. And that's a hard job for anybody, but for me, I had to wake up every morning to go stand in front of a different group of little kids I'd never met and write Mr. Tickle on the board. Spend homeroom convincing them I'm a real person and not a prank their teacher was pulling. It's difficult work. And I made the mistake of teaching in the school district where I live. So I know all the kids in my town. I don't know their parents. So I can be walking around, get spotted by a little kid. And look, I was Mr. Tickle. I was a fun sub. That kid is thrilled to see me in the wild. But no parent wants their 7-year-old running up to a bearded stranger in a Walmart shouting, Mr. Tickle, I missed you. Give me a hug. I'm glad you guys liked the time I almost got arrested at a Walmart so much. It's fine, the charges were dropped. When I started teaching, I wanted to change my name because kids are mean, but I couldn't because I have family members who've done harder jobs than I've ever done or would be willing to do. For example, my father was a police officer. Yeah, put a gun and badge on every morning to keep the streets of suburban New Jersey safe as Officer Tickle. Hard for him, sure, but that's got to be worse on the criminals, right? It's not a story you can tell your cellmate, right? You can't tell them how you got busted by Officer Tickle. They're going to think you got arrested on Sesame Street. He didn't even have it the worst. My sister did, because my sister enlisted. My sister was Private Tickle in the Army. Yeah. And look, I know that sounds like something I'm not supposed to be able to say on this very clean comedy special. But until my sister enlisted, no one ever put the words private and tickle together in a sentence. So it sounds dirty, but it doesn't mean anything. Whatever you're picturing, that's your fault, not mine. I don't teach anymore. I've been a professional comedian now for a couple of years, but my resume is still out on job sites from the last time I was looking for work. So sometimes I'll get calls from recruiters. Got an email from one a while ago, and they're like, Glenn, we have a job we think you'd be perfect for. Here's a link with more information. We'd love to get you in for an interview. Let us know how you want us to proceed. So I clicked the link. It is for a listing for a neurophysiologist position at a hospital in upstate New York. Now look, we've only just met. You don't know a lot about me. Let me assure you, I am not now, nor have I ever been, a neurophysiologist. I'm not even 100% sure what that is. Some kind of brain doctor, I think, maybe. But I clicked the link, and I wrote back, set it up. I wanted to see how far I could take this thing. Look, they're confident I could do it. I don't see why I shouldn't be. Because I didn't think it would ever get to the point where, like, I'm in an operating room, scrubbed up, scalpel in hand. I'd have to be like, guys, no, time out. So I only did this as a bit. I don't know what I'm doing. Get somebody else in here to slice this brain up. Again, I don't know what the job entails. But I filled out a 30-page application on the hospital's website. Because as a professional comedian, I got time. A week later, I get a phone call. It is the recruiter, and he's upset. He's like, hey, I just heard from that hospital. You're not even remotely qualified for this position. I don't like having my time wasted. I'm like, hey, don't make me out to be the bad guy here. You emailed me first. You started this, right? I don't like having my time wasted either. It just so happens I got a lot more of it to waste than you do. He hung up on me before he could explain why he had emailed me in the first place. Somebody suggested maybe it's because there's another Glen Tickle in the world who is a neurophysiologist, and they meant to send it to him. It's a likely explanation. Here's the thing. Glen Tickle, not a common name. There's only 2 others in the world that I'm aware of. I'm keeping tabs on them in case there's ever a Highlander situation. Neither of them are neurophysiologists either. Then I met a guy who works in corporate recruiting, and he's like, no, I figured it out. Because when we're searching job sites, we're not reading resumes. All we're doing is doing keyword searches and email blasting everybody who comes up. I'm like, okay, I mean, that makes sense, but again, neurophysiologist doesn't appear on my resume anywhere. But I thought about it, and the word doctor does. Here's why the word doctor is on my resume. It's because under special skills, I have listed that I'm a Dr. Mario virtuoso. If you're not familiar, Dr. Mario is a game that came out for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. It is the thing I'm best at in life. I'm a good comedian. I'm a great Dr. Mario player. And that's not a joke. It's really on my resume. It's come up in interviews. I was interviewing for a writing job at a culture website a couple years ago, and they're like, it says here you're a Dr. Mario virtuoso? I'm like, yes, that's correct. And they're like, well, you know, we're a nerd site. We have a Nintendo here in the office, and we happen to have that game. And I'm like, fire it up. I'll play everybody in this room. If I win, you got to give me this job. They're like, we like your spirit, kid. I worked there for 2 years. I don't think I should be a neurophysiologist. Probably no one with my name should be, right? There's not a lot of Dr. Tickles in the world. Nobody's going to trust that guy with their brain. I'm married and have kids. I've passed my name on to other people on purpose. It's a tough sell. When my wife was pregnant with our first kid, we were coming up with names because you have to. My suggestion was Circus, Trapeze, Tickle. See, it's a fun name, right? It works regardless of gender, plus nobody's gonna make fun of my kid's last name being Tickle if their first name is Circus. I am a genius. All right, judging by how that joke landed, a lot of you agree with my wife. She's like, we're not naming our kids Circus. You're being ridiculous. So we tried to come up with something better. We really did. The thing is, you're never going to think of something that sounds cool when you put Tickle at the end of it. So we compromised, and then we just gave up. We named her Tess. Not a second and a half for the first one? Good, good. Respectable time. Not a record, but good. We'll let the rest of the room get caught up. Look. This one's like a magic trick. There's a slow burn on this joke. It's worth it for me. Because as a clean comedian, this is the cleanest joke I'm allowed to tell where testicle is the punchline, right? And if it took you a while, don't feel bad. I did that joke at a college in West Virginia once. I know, I was surprised they had them there too. And 2 weeks after the show, one of the students found me online and said, hey man, I just got that joke. You should have gotten it sooner, bud. Normally, I say it a few more times. We didn't really name her that, by the way. That's just a joke. Sometimes I forget to say that part, and people get genuinely upset with me. Be a good name if we had twins, though, right? Because there'd be 2 of them? All right, moving on. Genuinely wasn't sure how that part was going to go over. I have 2 kids now. And I didn't faint when my second daughter was born, which I know sounds like a weird thing to brag about, but I did faint when my first daughter was born. I got my wife to the hospital. We're in the delivery room. The doctors and nurses hook her up to the baby machine or whatever. Look, I don't know. I wasn't there very long. I don't know how it works. I was like, Doc, is everything going to be okay? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Oh, okay, good. And then I'm out. I know in my heart, by the way, as a professional comic, that joke would be funnier if I fell down when I did it. I can't. Because when I fainted in the hospital, I fell into a table, smashed my back up real good, and I got rushed to the emergency room where I was given pain medicine before my wife, who was giving birth to a human child, took pain medicine. Because I'm hardcore, yeah. And that's an embarrassing story to tell. And the reason I do it on stage is because I'm not allowed to talk about it at home. Yeah, no. My wife is a very loving, understanding woman, but she spent 9 months turning food into a person and squeezing it out of herself. She doesn't want to hear about the boo-boo daddy got because I fell down because I can't handle stress like an adult. She's like, you fly to Utah and tell people that joke. I don't want to hear it. And when I fainted, the doctor told me, he's like, hey, don't worry, man. A lot of guys faint when their kids are born. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's like, okay, thank you. That does make me feel better. And my kids are born 5.5 years apart. So the second time we're in the delivery room, right, one of the nurses goes, "You look familiar." And I said, "Is it because I'm famous comedian Glen Tickle?" And she goes, "Nope, it's definitely not that one." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's hurtful, but if you think of it, let me know." And a couple hours later, she comes back in, she's like, "I remember, you're the guy who fainted." And I'm like, "The guy who fainted?" Because you're right, I did, but when that happened 5 years ago, I was told it's very common, and you're a baby nurse, you do this every day, so statistically, I should be one of many guys who fainted. Enough that I shouldn't be the one. You shouldn't be able to pick me out of a lineup half a decade later, is what I'm saying. And she's like, "Gotta go do nurse stuff, bye." Thank you. The one guy clapping for that. I have 2 kids now, which is the most kids anyone's ever had before, and quite frankly, I'm a hero for doing it. That polite chuckle is not what that joke deserves. And you're not wrong, right? My younger daughter is a year and a half old. I've been doing that joke since she was born. That's usually what it gets. And I think I've finally figured out why that joke doesn't work. Is it because you're worried about my kids? You're like, 2's not that many, bud. You should be able to handle 2. I do. I got both of them. Do you guys have children? Parents in the room? Who thinks they have the most kids? Call it out. 8? 8? Yeah. I'm one of 5 kids, and that always felt like a lot until I met you guys. Do you have a favorite of the 8, or do you lie to your kids and tell them you don't have a favorite? We would always ask my parents growing up, like, "Mom and Dad, who's the favorite? Who do you love the most? Who's your favorite kid?" And they'd be like, "Glenn, you'll understand when you're older and you have kids, you don't have a favorite. You love all your kids the same. I got 2 now. Let's check the lineup. I have 6-year-old Amelia, who sleeps through the night, tells me what she needs with words I understand, and plays video games with me when I'm bored. Then there's 1-year-old Olivia. She's the sweetest little baby you've seen in your life, but she does still blow out a diaper every once in a while. So look, I love both my kids. There's a clear front runner. Joke's not mean if I don't tell you which one it is. It's the older one. It's obviously the older one, right? I've known her longer, I think, is what it is. And look, just because she's the favorite right now doesn't mean that's always going to be the case, right? If you're watching this, sweetie, stay on your toes. Daddy's fickle. I've been a dad for over 6 years. I don't have any world's greatest dad stuff, which bothers me. I don't know how to ask for it. I'd feel weird, so instead I'm going to talk about it on a comedy special. I'm pretty sure my wife and children are going to watch. But I was shopping last June with my older daughter, and we passed a display of world's greatest dad mugs. It's like, "Oh, sweetie, look at all this reasonably priced merchandise, well within the budget of your allowance." And she'd just gotten out of kindergarten. She's starting to read a little bit, so she looks at the mugs, right? She's trying to sound out the words in her head. Her face is all scrunched up. It's adorable. Because I can see the moment it clicks, right, where she reads the words. I'm so proud of her. I was proud of her for about 2 seconds, because then she turns to me and goes, "World's a big place, Daddy." Ooh, a lot of daddies in the world. I'm like, "You're ice cold, baby girl." She's basically saying, she's like, "Look, you're great. I don't know about greatest, all right? I'm only 6. Let's wait and see how I turn out before we make any grand proclamations there, old man." So if you felt bad for the baby in that last joke, all she has to do, buy me a mug, she jumps to the top of the charts. My love can be bought. I'm not proud of it. I like being a dad. It's my favorite. I'm a great dad one-on-one, but when I have them both by myself, it does feel a little overwhelming because they outnumber me, right? Then they go from being my adorable children to like a pack, right? They're the velociraptors from Jurassic Park at that point. And my older daughter is 6, so she can open doors like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. Call my baby testing our fence for weaknesses. They're clever girls is what I'm saying. Right? If I see one of them coming down the hall at me, it's already too late. The other one's rushing in from the side for the kill. Clever girls. I'm comfortable with that. I'm kind of a nerd. I don't know if you guys could tell from that great Jurassic Park joke that I just did, but I also like the movie Star Wars a lot, so I got my daughter and I lightsabers to play with for Christmas one year, and a while ago we were having a little lightsaber duel out on the front lawn, a little battle of the fates, and She's like, Daddy, I want to go for a walk. I was like, all right, sweetie, well, go stand on the porch because I have to run in the house and get my keys. Don't get off the porch. I'm going to be in and out in 2 seconds. Stay on the porch. So I go in, grab my keys, I come out, she's not on the porch. She's out in the grass swatting at bugs with her lightsaber. And I was like, ooh, sweetie, go inside. We're not going to go for a walk now because you didn't listen. She's like, no, I want to go for a walk. I'm like, I told you to stay on the porch and you didn't, and there's consequences. She's like, no. And I'm like, cool, I get to be the guy who drags a screaming child into his house. This is going to be fun. So I walk up to my daughter. Here's the thing, guys. She's still holding her lightsaber. So when I get within striking distance, she takes a swing at me, like a real swing, like an I'm gonna strike you down where you stand, old man swing at me. But I too was still holding my lightsaber and been a nerd for a long time, not about to lose a lightsaber duel to a 6-year-old, right? So I smack it out of her tiny little hand, which she's lucky to have, by the way. I was like, Amelia, go inside, I am your father. Such a dumb joke, you guys. Don't reward this behavior. I don't eat meat, which I only talk about because otherwise the next couple of jokes don't make sense. I'm not preachy about it. I'm not going to give you pamphlets after the show. Don't worry about it. You guys are adults. Live your lives. But I was at a barbecue over the summer at a friend's house, and before they fired up the grill, they're like, hey, if anybody would like one, we have some veggie burgers and veggie dogs in the freezer. We'd be happy to put one on for you. Before I could say anything, this drunk lady calls out. She's like, no! I don't care if you don't eat meat. You don't get to eat something that's shaped like meat. And I'm like, well, that's a very strong opinion about what other people eat, but also, lady, I don't know what shape you think meat is, but it's not a cylinder. That's not how that comes normally. I'm not a pushy vegetarian. Don't worry about it. Like, for example, my wife and kids eat meat. Well, not the baby, because she doesn't have all her teeth yet. It'd be weird if she was gumming down on a steak, but my wife and older daughter eat meat. But just to make things easier, we usually don't have it in the house. So we have like these fake chicken nuggets that we make for my daughter sometimes. But we went out to dinner with my in-laws one night, and they got her regular chicken nuggets. And we told her, and we're like, oh, sweetie, there's a regular chicken nugget, not like we have at home. She's like, so this used to be a chicken? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking, look, that kid loves animals. This is where she comes over to daddy's side. She's like, somebody killed it and turned it into a nugget and battered and fried it? And I'm like, yup. And she, without breaking eye contact with me, just goes, awesome, and puts the whole thing in her mouth. Yeah. My older daughter is in school now. She's a first grader. Her teacher sent a note home that said, your daughter needs to learn time management skills. And I'm like, yeah, bud, she's 6. She needs to learn most skills. What are you talking about? That's why I wake up so early every morning and bring her to you. Sounds like you have some work to do. Stop writing notes. Manage your time better. When she was in preschool, I went to pick her up one day, and her teacher pulls me aside, and she says, your daughter needs to learn your wife's phone number. And I said, why? You have it. And she's 4 and doesn't know how to use a phone. So if something comes up, I'm sure between the two of you can figure this out. And she's like, no, she needs to learn your wife's phone number for safety reasons. And I was a little annoyed she kept saying my wife's phone number and not my phone number, as if I'm somehow less of a parent. But if we're being honest, I don't like giving my phone number out to people. So if it's got to be one of them, she can have my wife's. Like, I'll give my daughter my agent's number. He usually knows how to get a hold of me. But she was right about the safety thing, and I was surprised, because she's a smart kid. I figured she would know it. So we're standing there with her teacher. I was like, sweetie, what's mommy's phone number? And she goes, hey, Siri, call mommy. I'm like, yeah, see, she knows it. What are you talking about? Welcome to the future. She doesn't know my wife's phone number. She doesn't know Morse code either. What are we doing? I can't teach my daughter my wife's phone number, because I don't know my wife's phone number. Are you kidding me? I put it in my phone once when we were dating in college. It's the last time I ever thought about it. I'm gonna dial numbers like it's the 1900s. Oh yeah, let me just memorize 10 digits in a row? Gross. What am I, Fibonacci? Get out of here. I do remember the number for the pizza place in my town that I've lived in for my entire life that I've been ordering from for over 30 years. So I'm just gonna teach my daughter that phone number. Because look, if there's an emergency, Luigi's is gonna know how to find me, and they're gonna do it in 30 minutes or less. I don't want to bum you guys out, but we had a death in the family a couple years ago, and my daughter was 3, and apparently that's the age where if your uncle dies, you turn into Wednesday Addams, because that's basically what I've been dealing with for a while. For example, here's the order. Everyone in my family's gonna die. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my mom, my dad, my wife, me, my older daughter, the baby, and I know this because my daughter would tell us 3 or 4 times a week. We never asked. I never sat my daughter and I was like, hey, sweetie, who's next? She just brings it up at dinner a lot. It happens to be by age or that's her plan. I haven't figured it out yet, but either way, I'm right in the middle. I got time. And the thing, like, if you guys have kids, you know sometimes kids say creepy stuff or weird stuff. It's funny for a little bit or it's unsettling. You just get used to it, right? So my daughter's been a creep for so long, I'm just like numb to it. Like, this stuff doesn't faze me anymore. For example, there's a nature preserve by our house that I like to take my kid to. We go for hikes, and there's this ranger station that we like to go in because there's like a playroom for kids. There's another room that's wall-to-wall taxidermied animals, and my daughter loves it in there. So we go in, and we're looking around, and she's like, Daddy, see all these animals? I was like, yeah, sweetie. And she's like, they're all dead. Like, yeah, no, I know. And she's like, but they used to be alive. Again, yeah, typically how that goes. And she's like, somebody killed them, took out all their guts and stuffed them like one of my toys. It's called taxidermy. I'm like, you know a lot about this for a 6-year-old. Let's get out of this room. So I take her by the hand, and we're going to leave, and there's this taxidermied fox right at her eye level, and she just looks into its lifeless doll eyes and goes, Daddy, when I die, I don't want to be stuffed. And I'm like, wasn't gonna, but I'll make a note. I don't know. Let's go. So we go to leave this building and go for a hike, and there's a woman who works at the front desk of this place. So I'm walking with my daughter, and we pass the front desk, and my kid stops, looks this lady in the eye and goes, when I die, I don't want to be stuffed. And I'm like, yep, that's a normal thing to say. And then I walk hand in hand with a 6-year-old into the woods. We get like 100 yards in. I was like, oh, sweetie, we need to go back right now. And she's like, did you forget something, Daddy? I'm like, no, but I need that woman to see me with you alive, or there's going to be a search, and Daddy's going to get in a lot of trouble. I do a lot of jokes about how my older daughter scares me, but now the baby's starting to do it too, so I'm wondering if maybe I'm not the problem. The baby has this game that we call nap time. It's very cute. What she does, she takes one of her toys, and she has this little toy pillow and a little blankie. She puts the pillow down, puts the toy on the pillow, puts the blankie on the toy, and then she makes a little snoring sound because the toy has gone to sleep. It's very adorable. But she is 1, so she does mess it up. So sometimes what she does is she takes the toy, puts that down first, then puts the blankie over it, then realizes she still has the pillow, and then just kind of slowly lowers it over the toy's face like it's a witness in a mafia movie. Then she makes her little snoring sound, which now sounds sinister because it sounds like the toy's fighting for air. And eventually she stops and then just looks up at me with the pillow like I've seen too much. I'm like, you know what, nap time's over. We gotta do a different game. Terrifying me, child. My children are beautiful. From the day that my second daughter was born, people have told me that she looks like my father. It's not a nice thing to say. To either of them, really, right? Please don't look my beautiful infant daughter in the face and say, hey, you know who she looks like? See that retired 65-year-old police officer over there who looks a little bit like John Goodman? That's your baby. That's what your baby looks like. She looks like old Officer Goodman. Like, that's not nice. It's also not nice to him, though, right? He's an adult man. Don't tell him, hey, you know who you look like? You see that little fool stumbling around over there with no hair or teeth? That's you. That's what you look like. And the thing is, like, the baby's slowly gaining hair and teeth, and my father's gradually losing them, so eventually they will meet in the middle, right? And on one magical day, I think they're going to look identical. Until that happens, please stop saying it. I travel a lot for comedy, and before I left to come here, I picked my beautiful baby daughter up. I looked her in the eye and said, sweetie, Daddy's got to go. Daddy's got to go tell jokes to the people. And my 1-year-old baby looks back and she goes, Father, Papa, what are jokes? And then I explained all of comedy to my baby daughter, and she says, Father, I understand. Father, I have written a joke. Will you tell my joke to the people? And she whispered a joke in my ear, and I said, of course, baby girl. I'm gonna do that joke for you now. Hey, we all on board with the premise that a 1-year-old wrote the joke you're about to hear? Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense, all right? Here's the joke. I still remember my first doctor's appointment. It was terrible. I spent 9 months in the waiting room. Yeah, it's a perfect joke. I'm raising a prodigy. Friends, I have to be honest with you. I lied to you just now, and I feel bad about it. You deserve the truth. My baby didn't really write that joke that we all loved so much. I did. I wrote that perfect joke that we all agreed was wonderful. That was me. And I feel bad for lying to you. But my baby really did write a joke, and this is true. So sometimes when I'm feeding my daughter, what she does is she takes a big old sip of her water, but does this. And look, yeah, very funny. I like this joke a lot, because one, it works. I'm proud of my daughter for writing it. I don't like how wet I am, and I'm unsure how I feel about the fact that my actor now has a splash zone, but I'm proud of my daughter, so I'm gonna keep doing this joke. And somebody told me, they're like, hey, just because your kid did something funny once doesn't mean she wrote a joke. I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing. She didn't only do it once, right? When she did it, we all laughed, and she's my kid, so she liked it. So she does it a lot. Not every time, my baby's not a hack, but she does it pretty frequently. Before I go, there's a fun group activity I think we could all do. So I got heckled a while ago, which I know you guys find hard to believe, because let's face it, I'm great at this, but I was doing a show at a music festival in a giant sold-out room, hundreds of people. I get on stage, and some guy from the back of the room starts calling stuff out. I can't even hear what he's saying. I can just tell he's being disruptive. So I make a joke about him being drunk, finish my set, and I get off stage, the show continues. And then I'm back in the green room, and I'm playing around on my phone, and I look on Facebook. I've got like 30 updates. They are from that guy. He found me to keep heckling me during a show I was now no longer a part of. And I admire his dedication, but it does make him the dumbest heckler in the world, because at the beginning of this story, he's some guy, right? He's a faceless voice in a crowd. But Facebook works both ways, guys. Now he's Dan. I know where he works, and I've seen pictures of his kids. So what I do is I film audiences yelling, "Boo Dan, we love Glen Tickle," and then I send them to him on Facebook. As like a fun reminder of our time together. And I have comedian friends who've seen me do this before, and they hate it. They're like, Glenn, you gotta stop doing that bit. And I say, why? And they say, because that happened in 2011. You're an adult. You need to let things go. Never. I will die doing this bit. So on the count of 3, it's Boo Dan, we love Glen Tickle. I'm gonna get out of here. You guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Boo Dan, we love Glen Tickle! I love you guys too. That is it for me. Thank you so much.